quite literally, embracing creativity in a way that I wasn't planning on doing is what really brought me all the way across the world. This story starts when I was a kid. This kid, to be exact. I'm the handsome one. See, back when I was a kid, I wanted to be an artist, and I had a very specific idea of what that meant. I would sit down and I would draw comics. I would just split a page into 6 little squares, and then I would make a comic. I would always put a little punchline or a joke or something in there, and I just loved doing it. I loved drawing. Come to think of it, 6 frames, little joke. I was basically making vines, except it was on notebook paper. And we had dial-up, and smartphones didn't exist. Okay, it was nothing like making vines. It was the olden days. This takes longer than I remember. Fast forward a few years, and my drawing is not any better. It's still really bad, and I love making comics and writing these little stories and putting a little joke in them, but my drawing is mediocre at best. Here I was, this kid that thought he wanted to be creative, but I wasn't good at the one creative thing that I thought that I could do. And I didn't have that drive to get really good at drawing. But it wasn't until later that I figured out why. See, this is a dog. And then this guy says, "Aw, can I pet your dog?" And then this guy says, "Yeah, sure." And then the dog's all angry and scary. And this guy's like, "I thought you said I could pet him." And then this guy is like, "I mean, it's not really up to me." I don't know. I'm rusty. Shit, give me a break. Jump forward like another decade, and I'm in high school, and I'm not drawing at all. Because I'm just bad at it. I have no real interests of substance other than substances, and I don't have any direction about what I'm gonna do because I thought I just wanted to be creative, but now I don't know what that means. And the one creative thing that I half-assedly pursued was not working out for me. Around this time, my mom sticks me on a train to go to Chicago to go shadow my uncle at his agency. My uncle was a graphic designer. And this was a really important moment because it's when I got introduced to the industry that would eventually change my life and my outlook on creativity. Advertising.
Dear clumsy bellboys.
He likes it! Hey, Mikey!
When I was at that agency, all these really creative people showed me all this cool stuff they were working on. There was beer in a fridge, there was a pool table and an Xbox. People were swearing and laughing. It was everything that I thought a job wasn't supposed to be. And the best part was that people were getting paid to be creative, and I wanted in. So when I go off to college, I start studying graphic design. My uncle was a graphic designer, so naturally I need to be a graphic designer. That's how you get into advertising. That's how you make money being creative. However, it doesn't take very long for that same old story to start rearing its head. Graphic design starts getting tedious. I start getting frustrated. I start realizing that I'm just making stuff with no real substance. I'm just trying to make things that look cool, which is fine. That's fine. But I start losing the motivation to be good at it. It's the same thing that happened back when I was a kid with drawing and with comics, and it's just happening all over again. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, so maybe being a creative person just isn't for me. Very stupid thing to think. Now, really quickly, we have to take a short detour to tell you about how people get jobs in advertising. Some of you might know this already, but some of you won't, and you have to kind of understand it slightly to get where this is going next. Flat tire. My pump is upstairs. We're walking. If you wanted to build a big, tall building, you wouldn't get hired to do it unless people knew you could build big, tall buildings. There's too much at stake. There's too much money involved. Same thing with advertising. And with most things, I guess. Except the stakes are lower, there's less money involved. Still a lot, but less. I guess it's not really the same at all. It's kind of a bad metaphor. The point is, if you wanted to build this, you would have to have certifications, you would have to have blueprints, you would have to have all these things that prove you know how to make the building. And the same thing is true in advertising. They don't just hire you and let you come straight in unless you've proven to them that you have good ideas. The way you do that is you make a portfolio full of ads. Well, how do you make ads if you don't make ads? It's simple. You just make fake ones. So you spend all this time, people spend years making fake ads for their portfolio just so they can get into an ad agency to make real ads. They throw a bunch of money into it because the competition is really, really high to get into these jobs. So, fake ads, portfolio, job? Maybe? Did I have to come out here to tell you that? Probably not. What is that doing here? So, the name of the game is to have a killer portfolio. One day I'm at this interview for a graphic design internship, and I kind of know that I'm not qualified, and so does the interviewer. But at one point they're like, who's writing all the headlines on your ads? And I was like, I am, because that's what I thought you did. I thought if you were the designer, you do the whole, you make the thing. And that's when they told me something I already knew, which was that I was not gonna go anywhere with design. But then they said they thought I could be a really good copywriter. I don't know how I got to this point of thinking I was going to get a job in advertising and work in an ad agency and have that like sexy ad agency life that everyone thinks about without really doing my research on what the creative departments and ad agencies look like. But I got home and did all this research and I'm like, copywriters write the ads? Okay. Some of you are probably like, yeah, of course they do, you idiot. But at the time I was like, what's this, it's just writing? I'm not a writer, I barely read. But the more I started looking into it, the more I start realizing something, and then all of a sudden, it clicks. Because copywriters write the ads, they're very involved in the overall idea behind an ad. Sometimes more so than anyone else. Now that's not always true. Obviously there's art directors and designers and there's a lot of people involved, but at the end of the day, copywriters have a really big say in the idea and what it ends up eventually turning into when you create the idea. This was like my memento moment. I'm like looking at my tattoos and figuring everything out. I realized the reason that I loved making comics but not necessarily drawing. Why I loved really cool ads but not necessarily designing them. And it was very simple, brutally simple. I just like good ideas. All this time I was forcing myself into this limited view of what creativity was, and I was denying myself all these other opportunities to be creative and just embrace creativity in whatever form it was coming to me in. It's incredibly simple, and you guys probably already knew this, but for the people that don't, for the people like me when I was that age, there's more than one way to be creative. Now, a lot of you are probably like, Tommy, it takes more than one person to create something, and you're absolutely right. There still need to be all these other people in the process. There need to be other people you collaborate with to make stuff. But even just coming to this realization helped me understand that better. And from that point on, I was all in. I worked my ass off to make a portfolio that could get me a job in advertising. And this time I wasn't trying to do things that I wasn't necessarily good at. I was coming up with ideas and then collaborating with people, and they were doing what they were good at and I was doing what I was good at, and all of a sudden we started making stuff. And eventually I did get that first gig in advertising, and eventually I started making real stuff. Now, I'm not under the impression that anything I've done in the ad industry has like lit the world on fire. It hasn't. My portfolio is fine. I don't have a shelf full of awards. I haven't even hung the shelf up that I'm supposed to hang in here. But when I do, there won't be any awards on it. But that's not even the point anyway. The point that I wanted to hit on is that by opening myself up to a type of creativity that I was unaware that I was kind of intentionally closing myself off to, ended up taking me way further than I ever could have gotten with this one limited idea of what I wanted to be and what being creative was. The craziest part about all of this is when I finally dropped the moniker of having to be a designer, I actually probably started getting better at design thinking. I started collaborating with people that taught me more about it actually, and it's because I wasn't sitting there thinking, okay, I have to master every little detail of this, because I actually just started getting interested in the process of making ideas come to life. A lot of crazy things can happen when you just open yourself up to them. And one of those things for me ended up being that a company, a brand across the world saw what I was doing, thought that my ideas were good, and decided that they would bring me across the world to come be creative and have ideas for them. So quite literally, embracing creativity in a way that I wasn't planning on doing is what really brought me all the way across the world. And really, it all started with 6 frames and a piece of paper. Wow, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Some of you who have watched my other stuff are probably like, this is different. And it is, and that's on purpose. If you watched my video about how I moved to Germany during the pandemic, I mentioned that I'm not just gonna make content about being in Germany or being an American in Germany. My goal is not to make this an expat channel. My goal is to make this my channel, and I just so happen to live here in Germany. Sometimes things are gonna be about my expat experiences, some things aren't. And hopefully you like all of them. But I won't blame you if you don't. It's not for everybody. If you did like this one or haven't seen the other videos, consider subscribing because there's gonna be more like this. If there's more stuff about creativity, the ad industry, things I've made, any of that stuff that you do wanna see, let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can do. And that's where I'm gonna wrap it up because Fergus is really sick of hearing me talk.